Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. Today we are talking about runewords that completely changed Diablo. Now there's a lot of runewords in Diablo 2. Most of them were introduced in patch 1.10 and you would recognize a lot of them right off the bat, whether it's Fortitude, Dragon, Delirium, it goes on. There's so many runewords. However, I want to talk about the 4 that completely changed Diablo, whether it's all of the classes, whether it changed PvP, whether it changed magic finding. We'll get into that. There's 4 I really want to talk about, but before we get into it, let's get into a little bit of history with runewords. So in the original Diablo 2, before the expansion, runes did not exist. We relied on rare items to be the best. If you prefer +1 to all skills, it was very hard to find. You would have to deal with, say, a Silks of the Victor. It was the only armor that had 1 to all skills on it, any kind of class skills, besides Berserkers, which gave 1 to Barb skills. But generally, we used these kind of like low-level items outside of rares. Then when the expansion came, we had an introduction to basic rune words like Stealth, Smoke, the basic rune words that you would expect early on with your character. Stealth is so common that it's actually considered used in speedrunning, every single speedrun, and it's extremely powerful for how easy it is to obtain. Normal Act 1, and you hit multiple breakpoints in faster cast rate, faster hit recovery, faster run walk, poison res. It's such a good armor. However, towards the end, once you get into like Nightmare and Hell, it's not that great anymore. There are plenty of options, but that's how the progression started off with runewords. There were none, everything was fine. Then we get original runewords, still fine. And then patch 1.10 comes along, and it completely changes the way Diablo 2 works. So in patch 1.10, we're suddenly introduced to big runewords like this one here. Breath of the Dying, massive damage. We are introduced to Fortitude, massive armor, even gives extra damage. Basically one of the best armors for yourself or a mercenary, depending on what your class is, like a barb, for example. But we do need to cover the 4 runewords that completely change the game, whether you play this particular character or whatever. Let's get into it. So the first one is the Spirit. This one I consider one of the strongest runewords in the game that has completely changed the game, because Spirit is so easily obtainable early on that you really don't have to work towards too many weapons. Like a Heart of the Oak, you had to farm for a Vex rune in Hell mode in order to get a Heart of the Oak. If you wanted a Wizard Spike, you had to get lucky and hope that would drop. There's so many weapon options, but most of them are towards the end game. But something like a Spirit, it's got the stats of an end game item, but it requires nothing. It's just a 4-socket sword, and it's basic runes from normal mode, Tal, Thal, Orton, Amn. It's crazy common to get a Spirit Sword, and take a look at the stats. It's incredible how this made it out of PTR or beta back in the day, how this is even considered a balanced rune word for how many runes it requires, or not how many, the quality of runes it requires, pretty much nothing. So overall, just you look at the stats, and especially considering most players play a Sorceress, this is one of the greatest weapons or greatest items you'll ever see in this game as a Sorceress, because faster hit recovery, 55%, helps you so much when you're teleporting. If you get hit while teleporting, and especially if you're playing hardcore, you need to be able to react very quickly, leave or anything, and the hit recovery just helps so much. As if that wasn't already great, you get the 2 to all skills, you get the 35 or 25 in between there, of course, varying. You get the faster casting as well, and as if that wasn't already enough with major stats, we have a lot of vitality and we have a lot of mana, which helps overall. So anyone that plays a caster, like, this is something to drool over. It's incredibly powerful. The next rune word we're talking about is Call to Arms here. Now this one is probably obvious to most of you guys. Call to Arms allows non-barbarians to gain access to the Battle Order's ability. So I don't know if you guys ever watch like ladder resets or anything like that, but every team has one barbarian specifically for Battle Orders, because giving your whole team a significant amount of life is very crucial to making it into Hell mode early on, especially in hardcore. There's a saying that kind of goes around in hardcore: no barb, no hell. It's as simple as that early on in a ladder. Going into Hell mode without Battle Orders is extremely risky. Hardcore isn't even that difficult. Hell mode isn't even that difficult. It's just that the chances of dying to a one-shot is much higher without Battle Order. So for that reason, everyone wants to play it safe and take a Barbarian. With Call to Arms, it completely nullifies the Barbarian. Everyone has a significant amount of life. You can solo Magic Find without risk. That's all that really needs to be said, is Battle Orders on a weapon. The next rune word we have here up for debate is the Infinity. So one of the ways of adding difficulty into Diablo is adding immunities to monsters. So for example, Sorceress doesn't necessarily fare well in the Chaos Sanctuary unless you're Blizzard specifically because of how powerful it is in addition to being cold damage. And when it comes to fire, you'll notice you don't see too many fire builds out there. Fire Sorceress, Fire Elemental Druid, Fire Trap Assassin. Whenever it comes to fire builds, you don't really see them because there's no way to really deal with the immunities. Infinity allows you to help with other elements like lightning especially, so because of that, it doesn't actually affect fire immunities. The reason why Infinity is so good is because it takes away most immunities, in addition to also having very powerful stats for your mercenary. The crushing blow is significant against bosses and just, I guess, monsters overall, and it's just significant in terms of damage. So Infinity is one of, by far, the best weapons in almost every class build you will see when it comes to your mercenary, especially if you're running an element like Lightning Java Amazon, Lightning Trap Assassin, just any build really. Even summoners use this. It's a crazy item. It literally takes away immunities. The Lightning Source is a perfect example of this. Most sources run Blizzard, but once you get an Infinity, you can actually become viable with a Lightning build, and that's what Infinity does. It allows certain builds to become viable. It allows the removal of immunities, besides of course having lower resist from a necromancer or a wand that gives lower resist, or having a conviction or a paladin in your party. So similar to the call to arms, Infinity allows you to take care of yourself without having to be dependent on others in terms of utility. For the final rune word, we have Enigma here. This one should be obvious to most of you veterans out there, or basic players if you've looked a little bit into the history of Diablo 2. Before rune words, before the expansion, the only way you could get teleport is either playing a sorceress, or you obtain a staff or amulet with charges of teleport on it. Many speedrunners that aren't running sorceress will use this tactic, for example. You can buy it from the shop, or pray to RNG that it drops, but generally the shop is more reliable. But generally you will never see anybody running teleport unless you're a sorceress, and Enigma is where the whole game changes. For example, the reason why you see most players playing a sorceress is because they are by far the most efficient when it comes to magic finding, and that is mostly due to having the teleport ability. You can skip running around the catacombs, the Durance of Hate, finding the pit, finding the ancient tunnels. Whatever you're doing, it allows you to skip a lot of monsters, it allows you to skip through walls, it allows you to skip a lot and save a lot of time. That's why the sorceress is so efficient. So Enigma completely changes the game, because there are some classes out there that are extremely powerful, such as Blessed Hammer Paladins, Javelin Amazon, specifically Lightning. Some of these classes have really good builds, however they don't have teleport, so they still fall behind the sorceress. So once you get an Enigma on some of these particular classes, it completely changes how they play, and it completely changes their efficiency. So I'm sure you guys remember the iconic Hammerdins, where once they get an Enigma, they're teleporting everywhere and they're just clearing out everything. They can clear the chaos, they can clear the pit, they just deal with everything. The only thing they were lacking was a teleport mechanic, and now they get it through Enigma. So Enigma has completely changed how magic finding works. Thankfully, however, it does require two very expensive, rare to find runes, the Jaw and the Burr, so generally you won't see Enigmas all over the place right away at the beginning of a ladder reset, and that's a great thing because Sorceress is still reliable, and, well, you know what, maybe it's not a great thing because it forces people to continue to play one class over and over again, but nonetheless, something as good as an Enigma really should be hard to create. It should be something to look forward to creating, a goal, if you will, so, that's something up for debate. However, Enigma isn't only just impacted there, it's also impacted in PvP. Again, Sorceress used to be the only one with teleport. Everyone had to run around, Hammerdins had to charge, for example, Barbarians had to leap. However, with Enigma, now everyone can teleport. You'll see a Barbarian teleport onto you into an instant whirlwind. You'll see a Wind Druid with Hurricane up and his Bear and his Mercenary, and he's going to teleport onto you, spamming tornadoes to kill you. You have Necromancers with their Bone Spears, Bone Spirits. It's crazy. Enigma has completely changed the game by far, not only in magic finding, not only in terms of most builds, but even in PvP as well. So those are the 4 rune words I would say that completely changed Diablo. I'm sure some of you guys want to mention other rune words like Last Wish or Grief and other rune words out there, but I really wanted to stick to the top 4 that has affected most classes and most gameplay. And to me, I feel the Spirit, the Call to Arms, the Infinity, and the Enigma are by far the top 4 rune words that have completely changed the game. Let me know what your list would be. Let me know if you agree with my list. I just enjoy making topics like this one. If you want to see more, if you want to request more, comments down below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you hopefully on my next video.